Savage Nation. Of course, the reason we're playing The Church Bells May Ring is because we have a victory, a real victory, and that is CAIR, that wonderful all-American group, attempted to extract almost $200,000, about $180,000 from me after a lawsuit was withdrawn by me. And my attorney, Dan Horowitz, joins us right now to give you the inside story. Dan, welcome to the Savage Nation. First of all, buddy, congratulations. Thank you very much. I read your brief. It was brilliant.
Well, Michael, congratulations to you and to your listeners. Thank you for supporting us. Dan,
I claim that this is a huge victory for me personally, but also for the rest of America who is afraid of this lawsuit-happy group of intimidators. What's your opinion of that statement?
It is a great victory. It's a victory for the First Amendment, and I think that's ultimately what this judge stands for, both in ruling against us on the First Amendment claim when CAIR threw out the copyright claim, and then saying to CAIR, you know what? Michael Savage had a good faith belief in what he did, and just because you were protected by the First Amendment, our Constitution, we're not going to let you punish or hurt good-willed people like Savage.
Well, look, I got to tell you something. I'm not a big fan of Bill Clinton and his policies. I'm not a big fan of liberal judges. But in this case, I think the judge was really, justice was blind. She read case law, and she said, no, you're not entitled to fees. Weren't they about $180,000 they were claiming, Dan?
They were claiming, I think when they scratched their nose, they billed 45 minutes of time. It was a very ridiculous, petition for fees. We wrote up, Michael, that entire RICO action for less money than they're claiming for their little copyright flurry of attacks, which were really very little and amounted to nothing.
Well, what about that other group that joined them, the Electronic Something Foundation? Who are they?
It's funny. It's a group that's supposed to be the ACLU of the Internet, and I've supported them, Michael. I'm a liberal. I've donated my time to that group, as has your First Amendment attorney, Marty Garbus. But they took...
I know you're a liberal, but somehow you seem to be more conservative than me on some issues.
Well, because I believe that when people work, they're entitled to keep their money, and that we're all equal, even if we don't belong to a certain group that's politically correct to support. But
you mean a conservative like me still has rights in America?
I think so, and I think, interestingly, Judge Ilston believes it too. When the fairness doctrine gets put back in and they try to close you down, I hope that your lawsuit gets heard in front of a real believer in the First Amendment like Judge Ilston, because regardless of who appointed her, she'll support your right to speak.
Well, I want to ask you about that since you brought it up. I'm not a lawyer. You are. You're a First Amendment guy. You know the liberal courts better than anyone I know. Your cousin Marty knows it very well. He's represented Lenny Bruce. How could they impose a fairness doctrine and say this segment of the media is singled out for fairness? How is that possible?
I don't think it is possible. And how do you label Michael Savage one way or the other? You are your own man. You say what you believe. Are they going to put on to count you somebody who says what they don't believe? You can't be pigeonholed.
Well, I also want to ask you this, Dan, because I raised it on my show yesterday. I was the first, but I won't be the last. If they try to reimpose the so-called fairness doctrine, could we claim that they should start with NPR since it's all left-wing all the time?
I think so. Then they'll close down MSNBC, and then they'll make the people on CNN disclose who they really support during elections. We all know who they support, but they make believe they're middle of the road. But I don't have to believe that. It's ridiculous. The fairness doctrine is government control of thought, and it is the greatest threat to liberty that has come our way in a long time.
You're the kind of liberal I could have a glass of wine with, Dan, which is why I like you. Because how many times have I said real liberals like Dan Horowitz, as opposed to the new fascists disguised as liberals, understand that that the First Amendment was written to protect not polite speech, but speech that is offensive. Am I right about that, Dan?
It's not only are you right about it, but this just came to my mind as you were saying that. I do a lot of TV at CNN, and I want you to know that there are a lot of people at CNN at the studio who love your show. So a lot of people agree that there needs to be a divergence of views, otherwise we die.
It's interesting you should say that. I'm in Hollywood right now. I've been down here for a week. I'm broadcasting from a remote studio, and I've been meeting a few people here and there. I have found out that there are fans in Hollywood going so high up the food chain. I was shocked because I work in a bubble, as you know, Dan. I basically live in my own world. I'm reclusive. I hardly ever go out to public. I have very few friends. That's the truth. so I don't really know who listens to the show. I've been learning that I am very popular in Hollywood, way up the food chain.
Yeah, I mean, there is nothing like somebody who honestly talks from the heart to get your juices going. And anybody who's a liberal who doesn't want to think doesn't have to listen to your show. But, you know, when you talk, it makes everybody think, and it makes people argue, and that's what America is about. That's why we beat CAIR in this case. I'll tell you why, Michael. Because when Judge Ilston said you, being potentially a radical Islamic organization, still have rights under the American Constitution, and then she turned around and said, but you can't take money from Americans who want to face you and challenge you, we won. We beat them. It's speech. She supported speech, and you are speech, and that's why this is a great victory.
Did they, do I have this right? In their motion for fees, didn't they claim something along the lines of, since we're liberals and you're a liberal judge, and Savage is a conservative, we should get him, in more words than one? Am I paraphrasing incorrectly?
As I read their papers, they kept citing your citations on your website to the Reverend Wright's hateful speech. They put things in front of the judge that I thought, and I put in my papers, I thought were pandering to what they believed the judge's point of view was, and I thought that was so offensive, and it's so stupid. Anybody who knows this judge knows that she is right down the middle, and you cannot influence her politically.
You mean they were taking articles that I posted on my website about Reverend Wright and making believe that was bad?
Yes, exactly. And that somehow that showed that you deserve to be sanctioned more. I mean, they had a very convoluted argument that was just a very thin cover for the fact that they thought, wrongly, that they could influence a federal judge by politics.
Well, what happens next? They can appeal this. Do you think they will, or will they win at the next level?
They can't win at the next level. This judge is tremendously respected. Just like when she wrote her copyright opinion, I didn't agree with it, but I said right in public, I respect it, and I respect how carefully she reasoned it. The same applies to this ruling. You can't beat a judge like that. A judge who is fair, when they go for you or against you, you can't beat them because they're...
Well, she cited case law as to why they're not entitled to fees. If they take it to the Ninth Circuit, what are they going to argue?
Nothing. They can't. She cited correct case law, and then in her judgment, in things, in areas where she has sole and exclusive rights to choose one way or the other, she made the choices that favored us. They cannot overturn it.